Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone. We're going to be doing the core developer meeting number 51. We didn't make a big deal out of celebrating 50 last time, so we'll celebrate 51 this time. Yay.
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 We should
Okay.
celebrate 64.
It's like 51% attack.
Yes, exactly. We're going to joke like that, and then one day it'll happen, and I'll blame you.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so the first item is testing. Um, So we're going to have Dimitri talk about that. But before we do that, I wanted to introduce Brian. He's new to the testing team. Brian, if you want to give a quick introduction and just kind of explain what you're going to be helping with.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So I'm Brian. Nice to meet you. Not quite a core dev, but I thought it'd be nice to join this meeting anyway. I was recently hired to work full time on making testing better. And that's a pretty I'm also not sure what that means yet. I guess the idea is to make it easy to generate tests, easy to use the tests. Um, I think a big piece of that, yeah, I've talked to Trinity a bit and I have an idea of what they want, but I love when people can reach out to me and tell me about the things that they would like to see better, see improve in the test. So it'll be easier for new content to be written, for content to integrate with them.
Cool. Thanks so much, Brian. Um, and then we're going to have Dimitri just go over if there's any testing news along with Martin, because I know Martin's been working on Hive. So let's start with Dimitri.
Hello there. So finishing Xcode hash implementation along with I discovered that every Xcode hash test could be used to check Xcode size, Xcode copy, and call to that contract. So, but those tests are not related to Constantinople. Every test that we have for Xcode hash could be enhanced like that. I received a lot of help actually on writing Xcode hash from Adrian and Hugo. And that's mostly all of the Xcode hash. The core ideas that we had are covered now. I'm finishing covering these ideas that we still have rest in our list. I'm still waiting for any contribution for bit shift test review. And I'm waiting for Hive results. I've been asking Martin. He says that Hive has some maintenance. Well, I'm waiting for client results on Hive to see if there are any issues, and we need to fix that, or maybe we will come up with some new tests after that. Well, create two tests already, store test ready. Bit shift tests exist, but I think we need a review on those because it's been written by Yoichi half of a year ago. And Xcode hash mostly all covered. Still adding a few of them, like one test every day.
Okay, thanks so much, Dimitri. Martin, did you have anything updated for Hive that you wanted to discuss?
Yes. So yeah, we're in the process of rewriting Hive a bit and making it more robust. And in the meantime, before we're finished with that, it's kind of flaky, and it will also see some additional tests, the peer-to-peer stuff that I've mentioned previously. Um, Regarding the tests, so at least for Geth, we updated all the tests, I think, about less than 2 weeks ago, and all the tests pass. And I kind of expect, even though we still have Hive, I kind of expect client implementers to actually import the tests and run them in their native settings once in a while. But I'm hoping to get Hive up and running as it should again within the next couple of days. We've also had no new failures on the fuzz testers that have been running continuously for the last, I don't know, at least a couple of weeks without any need to reboot them. So I'm fairly confident in the consensus of the clients right now, at least Geth and parity. Cheers.
Thanks, Martin. Okay, we're gonna go through clients now. We'll start with Harmony Ethereum J.
There is no major updates from us. We've been mostly working on Beacon Chain implementation. There have been a lot of recent changes in the spec, and it's not yet settled down. So a lot of things to do, catching up with those changes at the moment, and we'll probably do that next couple of weeks. That's it from us.
Okay. Parity.
We released 2.2.2 or a new version with quite a few improvements. Some nice, exciting stuff there, I think. So it improves sync performance a little bit. I think a big improvement is pairing stability. We fixed a bunch of pairing issues over the past couple of months where it now finds a lot of pairs, but there was still some fluctuation in the pair counts. We put in the block propagation fix that has been talked about. So once more people are on this version, we can see if it starts having any effect on the network overall. And other like minor improvements. I think one other mentionable thing is we took the decision to move JSON RPC APIs that are not yet accepted in an EIP, but that have been implemented either as a proof of concept of an EIP or for some reason has made their way into the ETH personal or Web3 namespaces. Those are now disabled by default, and you need to enable them by running with the flag JSON RPC experimental. I think good release, lots of improvements.
Cool. Thanks, Fred. Geth.
Nothing spectacular to report. We're mostly trying to do database optimizations, and that's about it. So it's kind of boring, just trying out ideas and looking at charts to see what sticks.
Okay. TurboGeth.
Hello. So I've got a couple of sites. First of all, in terms of development, I have fixed those rewind bugs that I found with the Robson sync. So it kind of syncs to Robson now. So then I started to work on the test suite. So as just Martin mentioned that he would encourage people to run it once in a while. So I've never actually tested them. So I currently have some issues, but I'm fixing them. And in order to make it work, I had to modify BoldDB, which might be interesting for some people. That now I can run BoldDB in all in memory mode, which means that it doesn't have anything on disk, which is something I wanted to do for a long time, but just never got to it. So now I have that option. So the client is still not ready for Constantinople because there's still create 2 revival is still not addressed, but I will address it at some point. And so in terms of the actual usage, I found myself using the TurboGeth quite a lot recently because if I don't know for other clients, but it turned out that it's actually quite useful for extracting the data that I used for state rent proposal. And so I'm still using it quite a lot. So I've got this little, like, as I said, 300 gigs database in my external SSD, and I created another copy of it and another one. So I'm just kind of going around and running all this data analysis things. So that was actually quite good. That's it for me.
Thank you. Ethereum JS. Okay. Do we have anyone from Aleph?
Yes. So we have some fixes and improvements to network code. Nothing to mention in particular, but we'll have probably today a new kind of tool that will work as a boot node. So it can be used similarly to Geth boot node, and I hope we can put it somewhere on the mainnet and testnets as an alternative implementation of that. That's all.
Cool. Nethereum. Okay. Nimbus.
Yeah. So lately we've been focusing on the parts of the EVM which relate to developer experience, debugging and tracing and such. So if you would like, if you have any good ideas in that area, feel free to mention them to us. It's something we're working actively on right now. It's a good time. I'd also call attention, since this is the sort of testing edition of the All Core Devs call, there is the first ETH 2.0 testing sort of framework and proof of concept things are landing right now, and there's a discussion going on Gitter. So I'll post a link to All Core Devs in case you're interested in that part. It's a good time to sort of influence the direction of the ETH2 testing. There we go.
Great. Pantheon?
I think I'm the only one on from Pantheon. I think we're planning on a minor release next week, 083. Haven't gone through the release notes yet, mostly bug fixes. It does include contributions from external contributors. Anton submitted flags for the Gurley testnet, or the pre-testnet. Besides that release, Adrian was looking into some of Alexi's StateRAM prototypes inside of Pantheon, and our R&D team is also working on a beacon chain implementation.
Great. Trinity? Okay. Ethereum?
Yeah, this is from the Mana project.
Oh, Mana, sorry.
Oh, no problem. We're still making good progress on a number of fronts. Right now we're syncing Constantinople blocks on Ropsten, so anticipating a full sync shortly. That's where we're at.
Great. Oh, I know I'm missing a few. Who else am I missing? I know oh, Swarm. We're going to start including Swarm. Adam, who is working with the Geth and Swarm teams a bit, is going to start giving some Swarm updates. So thanks so much, Adam, and go ahead.
So a little background, the context. Swarm is a part of Geth. It's in the same repository with its own semantic versioning. So the last Geth release contains Swarm improvements, such as access control and feeds, which will be announced in the 04 version with the blog post, which is coming with the next major release of Geth. And an update for the last 2 weeks, we introduced user perception tests and benchmarks. This is it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think Thomas is usually here, and I forgot which client he is. Does anyone remember? Okay. Then if there's no other clients, we'll go to Ewasm.
Yeah, this is Lane. I don't know that we really have an update. We have milestones that we're working towards. So the most recent one, I think we hit milestone 2. We're working towards a milestone 3. You know, more work going in. Like we released a proposal for ETH1X. I guess that was kind of the main thrust recently, and just kind of trying to pull design together to get ready for that. Pablo, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, great. Research?
Yeah, hey. A lot of our efforts have been put in revisions of the phase 0, which is the beacon chain specification for Serenity. Although heavy revisions, these are more in the readability, organization, you know, polishing up data structures, that kind of stuff, rather than doing overhauls of like the core algorithms going on. So as people have mentioned, it's been tough to keep up with these changes, but again, we're really honing in on what we would call like a first version of a release candidate. Beyond that,
the phase one stuff, which is shards, data chains, algorithms and general data structures are kind of forming there. I mean, the general algorithms are known, whereas they're being specified in a systematic way at the beginnings of that. And then in terms of the state execution, account structures, etc., that's kind of where a lot of the thought is going right now. And there are a handful of proposals on ETH Research that Vitalik posted that we're all kind of looking for feedback on right now. Beyond that, I think with respect to Justin's VDF Alliance, there's an increasing number of blockchains that are seriously interested in incorporating VDFs in various ways, which is pretty validating, at least from that perspective. That's the major front, and the research team has begun to do beacon chain implementation within PyEVM.
Great, thanks for the update. As far as VDFs go, I know Justin had a really good main stage talk at DevCon about VDFs that should still be on Slides Live, and the other DevCon 4 videos should be released today or Monday. I just got done uploading all of them and manually putting in every title, so they're all in there, and I just need to write up the blog post and get that going and get approval for a few things, so that should be hopefully up today. I'll try to make that happen. Am I missing any other clients or research teams or anything like that? Okay, we're going to go to working group updates. Make it pretty quick, but if you have anything to shill about something that's happened in the Magicians forums or meetings that are coming up or ways to get more involved, feel free. And can we start with Zach?
Yes. Hello. So we're putting together specs for a testnet. We've been working with 1x in the simulation group. I think this is probably something that's going to be relevant for the test group as well. So rather than taking up a lot of time here on the call, I'd just like to say that we're going to schedule a separate call for today that I'll post in the issue that I opened. So if anybody could join and provide some feedback, we could start getting the specs for this testnet and building it out. And it's going to be powered by the White Block framework.
All right, awesome. Do we have any updates on just who wants to go next? Maybe Alexi?
Yes, I have written something up for the kind of the research and then what happened in the state. I would call it state rent. It's one of the things. So the first version has been published. First version of the proposal has been published, and since then it received a lot of feedback. I'm really grateful for that. And so the most interesting one was that Vitalik was actually suggesting to use create two opcode with some other programming things to implement something which I was proposing to implement with linear cross contract storage. And I started doing that, and I have managed to implement the ERC20 contract based on these ideas. And I haven't completely tested it yet, but it does actually work in a way that it can transfer, so it can mint tokens, and it can transfer tokens. And that was interesting to get a first feel of how would you use the create two. And that is why I've created I've commented on the issue on Solidity, and also created some thread on ETH Magicians for people who are interested in looking into Solidity code and try to even like on their own branch to create some kind of new primitives to make it easier to work with create two, because at the moment it's a bit of a pain because you have to like copy paste the bytecode of the contract in the source code. Anyway, so but I will still, so basically based on that, the linear cross-contract storage will most likely be going to be dropped from the proposal in the next version. And also priority queue in a step 2 will probably be removed. But I haven't kind of done this second proposal yet. So then, but I will still be looking into linear storage elsewhere. For example, it might be quite useful for Ewasm integration. So, but at the moment it goes out, might basically most probably go out of the scope. So now, as mentioned by Dano, I have asked Pegasus team whether they would help me to do the proof of concept, and they agreed. So Adrian Sutton has been working on that, and he's created the like a very first prototype, kind of moving through the proposal, which was really good. And I'm reviewing it, and I hope to get my prototype running as well. So it's based on Pantheon at the moment. And then also I've done a lot of data analysis, some of which was not presented in the state grant proposal. So the latest one was, I was trying to run a heuristics to identify all ERC20 tokens that exist in the state. And so I was using a successful token transfer. So, and it turns out that it was about 71,000 ERC20 tokens in existence, and they take up about 53% of the contract storage. And actually interesting, CryptoKitties is also ERC20 contract. I didn't realize that, because it's got both ERC20 and ERC721. And considering that it's a very important class of the contract, so that's why I've done the sample implementation of it using Vitalik's ideas. And the next step would be to look into the on-chain order books, is also from Vitalik's post on East Research. So I put some ideas about how to identify them. I'm going to do some analysis about the token nexus contract, which is basically where all the tokens go in and go out. So these might be very likely going to be some kind of on-chain order books. And also there's another idea based on this analysis that we might be able to compress the state by kind of using some sort of generation. So I probably need to write down on this, but essentially I'm looking into the ways how we can have a very, very compact representation of the current state, which was based on the concrete things that there. For example, like all the contracts that gas token is creating could actually be generated very easily by using a very minimal amount of seed data. So essentially, the gas token in this case will not take a lot of space in the snapshots when you try to sync it up. And for this particular, I'm not sure how well suited the other clients are for this data analysis, but if somebody wants to look at the Google Ethereum data set, like I haven't looked at it myself because I didn't have the time. Apparently they have a good data set. And is it possible to, let's say, to reproduce the data analysis I have done before? So which is some of it is in the state grant proposal, and then this ERC20 analysis. If somebody can try to do that, and then if they get the kind of the hang of it, so maybe this could be a good way to sort of split up this work, because obviously there's so many things to do in this stream, and I won't be able to do this all alone. So, and that's why I'm trying to enlist some people to do proof of concept together, and data analysis, and maybe modifications and solidity on Viper to make all these things easier. So that's it for me.
Great. Sounds like an awesome update. Next, I don't know if there's much except for the Magician's thread for the Ewasm proposal, because it was pretty clear cut before. Any Ewasm proposal update? Or working group, rather?
Not to my knowledge. I think the proposal represents the sort of snapshot of our work and understanding. And there's also a Fellowship of Ethereum Magicians Forum thread open, which I don't think has been super active up to now, but we could take the conversation there if people have questions.
Okay, wonderful. And then finally, Peter's working group on logs and stuff. I don't even know if that has a thread or not, or if it needs one. Did you have anything on that, Peter?
Yeah, so Peter's working group is Peter. Yeah, so I do have an Ethereum Magicians thread. I published a really long GitHub gist about everything I think it was about 2 weeks ago, or maybe 1 week ago. Yeah, I published it 7 days ago. Anyway, I don't have much to report on it. A few things that I'm currently trying to do is that in the blog post I mentioned that, in my opinion, the two viable approaches that we need to somehow experiment with or play with is either IPFS or BitTorrent. But honestly, both of them kind of suck a bit. And since then, I was actually considering experimenting a bit with Felix's ENR work. So essentially, if anyone here isn't familiar with it, Felix is working on a tiny extension to the Discovery protocol, which is really, really elegant, where nodes can advertise certain capabilities. And we already have most of that infrastructure in place. And what I would like to do is play around with it, where nodes start advertising, for example, that they are a light server or they are a full node with certain data sets available. And if we can start advertising those kinds of things, then I'm trying to figure out whether we could do the whole historical state retrieval in protocol without having to rely on, without having to actually hack another decentralized protocol for it. I'm not entirely sure it's possible, but just wanted to share that this is a third direction, which in my opinion is a valuable direction. And we're going to need it anyway for light servers, so might as well try to push it a bit and see where it goes.
Is this Discovery v5?
Well, no. So Discovery v5, it depends on how you define it. So the way current light servers work, that Discovery v5 was completely binned because it was just a horrible hack. So that is not, it's a different thing, but I guess Felix wants this ENR work to become the new Discovery v5. So from that perspective, yes, you could call it Discovery v5. So the problem with topic discovery was that it was just kind of hacked into the protocol, but it wasn't really scalable or working properly. And then this was a really clear, the ENR approach is kind of clear. Felix has a few EIPs open, so it's there's quite a lot of material already on it published on the EIP repo. In essence,
we're discussing in Serenity to use the ENR, whatever the mature version of Discovery v5 is, for advertising the shards that you're a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so exactly that's something that I would also like to experiment with, putting the historical state announcements or just telling the world how much historical state have on top of that exact same mechanism.
Cool.
Can you put a few links in all core devs?
Yes, I will dig up the EIPs and post them.
Much appreciated.
So I guess that's mostly the update from my part. I mean, I can't see, at least for now, an exact solution that is definitely going to work. So I'm probably going to sit on it a while until I figure something out.
Okay,
that's it.
Great. Greg, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, Peter, could you direct me to the gist that you mentioned?
Sure. I tweeted it out. I also posted it on Fellowship of Ethereum Magicians, but I will paste it on the core dev calls in 1 second.
Yeah, the search function on the Magicians didn't find it, and
yeah, and boom, I just pasted it there.
I don't see anything. Oh,
I pasted it on their own core dev. I'm pasting it here too. I pasted it everywhere.
Pasted everywhere as I got it, I think.
Thanks, Peter. Hey, Shahan. We just went through the working group updates. Is there anything on your side that you wanted to discuss? We just kind of went through every working group, and Zach talked about the meeting he's going to have on simulation in a couple hours or an hour and a half.
Nothing for me to add. Thanks.
Great. Okay, that's all the working groups. Constantinople hard fork is next on the agenda. I don't think there's much to talk about except for two things, Sturby and what Offrey posted in the agenda about the possible block numbers and calculated based on time. Now that we have block time, now we know more about block times. So let's talk about that first with Offrey. I think the gist of it is we're still fine, and there's a plus minus 2 day variant, right? Or variance.
Yeah, exactly. So last time we decided to talk about a block number this meeting, and yeah, I just put down some numbers. And if we go for like middle of the week or Wednesday, I did some calculations how much it could vary under different scenarios. And if we decide on a block number today, it will most likely be on a weekday.
Cool. So we need to agree on a block time today still, right? I forgot if we did that.
Yes, we have to do it.
Okay. If we agree on 7080042, the hard fork will happen between Monday and Friday. Cool. Who wants to suggest a block time? Or did you suggest 7080042?
Can we
suggestions?
Can we do 7080807 just to make it palindrome? Yeah, TLDR, I don't care.
Let's see. How much would that put us down? Is that okay, Offrey?
Yeah, that's with tolerance.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about half an hour or 1 hour or something. Just.
Oh, okay.
But Afri's 42 is also fine with me, so honestly, I don't care.
So what does everyone else think?
We can do a coin vote.
I support the palindrome.
Me too.
Palindrome's
Has
cool.
Has there been a pattern in the past? Like, have we used even numbers in the past? I just don't want to, like, if it's always been like 00000, like suddenly change now.
Well, palindromes are always appreciated, even in the past.
Yeah, I don't think it's always been 000 if I'm remembering correctly. We can look.
So
real
what
quick.
is what is the chance if somebody is trying like they did it on was on Ropsten? I think somebody has managed to push it closer on Ropsten when we agreed on a block number. In the end, it wasn't the way that we wanted. Is it possible to do it on the mainnet?
Much more difficult and expensive.
Okay, so we reasonably happy that it's not going to be like somebody's going to start super mining and then just for that purpose, and then just going to push it 1 month in front or something, or 1 week ahead of what we planned.
That's very unlikely because of the high difficulty of the mainnet. What could happen is that there's like a worst case scenario is if the price of Ether continues dropping very fast, that a lot of miners turn off their mining rigs. That could slow us down, but yeah, we have to observe it. I don't know. I mean, we have to agree at some point for a block number, and it would be nice.
Yeah,
if we
so I
could
think it makes sense. I think it's very stable. Yeah, so as Danny has posted the link. So yeah, it's I don't think it's a concern, to be honest.
So just to make this clear, because we're thinking of putting the block number into the next release, possibly with a switch to so user can delay it from the command line. But I just want to make clear. So we're not planning on changing the block number just because it will fluctuate and wind up on a weekend, right? The only reason to change the block number would be if we find another consensus bug, right?
Yes.
Yes, good.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. And yeah, all the previous ones have been 000, but I mean, we don't have to keep with that unless someone thinks that we should.
Well, it makes it easier to remember when because I pretty much I'm sure there's a lot of people who remember all the numbers by heart. I don't know what is the use of it, but you know, it's so far I managed to remember most of them.
Okay. Is anyone against having, I guess, quad zeros at the end? Or are we still pro palindrome? Palindrome is cool, but keeping with the zeros is good too.
Would we commit to palindromes going forward, or would this be a one-off?
Good question.
So it doesn't matter really.
Yeah, palindromes can be a bit hard. So currently it's kind of easy because it's the number is a bit boring, but maybe I could have imagined it being a bit harder to pull off the palindrome.
Yeah, that'd be hard to do in the future. And people are kind of probably a little bit like OCD about this stuff.
Well, wait, I guess as long as our block numbers are only in the millions, palindromes are fairly easy because it's still just maximum 1,000 blocks, or yeah, maximum 1,000 block drift. So that's still within a day. If we enter the 6 digits, then the drift might be 10,000 blocks, which is 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
4 zeros, please. There's only 3 numbers to remember then.
Oh, you're so boring.
Boring is good. Keep it simple, stupid.
There's only 3 numbers to remember for a palindrome too.
Yeah, I've changed my mind. I also agree with 4 zeros.
Okay.
Ah.
We're starting.
Okay.
We're starting to get to the zeros being what most people want. It sounds like.
I'll keep the Rinkaby test network interesting then.
All right.
Palindromes for testnet, zeros for production net.
Oh yeah.
Seconded. I like that idea.
I like that. So 7080000. It sounds like that's what we've come to. And it looks like the troll box is liking 4 zeros as well. Not that they matter. Sorry, troll box. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and do that unless there's anyone super opposed, which, yeah. And then Sturby, is there any updates on that? I think it's just been going smoothly, but I'm not sure.
I think generally, I think it was quite useful. I think not just because we kind of transitioned it. Of course, somebody tricked us in terms of mining. So I guess for me, the transition happened during the night when I was asleep, which was unfortunate because I wanted to see it. But I think Martin has discovered some of the kind of conversion tool bugs or something like that for Genesis. And was there any kind of problem with the other clients with the? We discovered something weird. Martin, did you discover something weird?
Not this time around, no. In the previous Ropsten screw up, there were some weird things happening, and I discovered a new kind of attack, which I don't really have time to go into in this call, but I'll try to make a good write-up and post it somewhere.
So you discovered it when during the Sturby?
No, that was during Ropsten.
Oh, Ropsten.
So
Okay.
I haven't really seen anything particularly interesting in Sturby.
Okay.
Well, there's some quirk in Geth, but I'm not sure what that is yet.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, of course, the fail of Sturby was that we fell prey of that miner who was GPU mining Sturby, and because the spec was publicly known, so we could not control that at all. So it turned out to be that I think the plan was to sort of have kind of a bit more mining during that transition, but I don't think it happened. So I don't know. I'm not going to push for another rerun of it with the secret specification, but I think I'm still like to think that it was useful.
Yeah, and at some point we maybe should spin up a new testnet. There's been a suggestion for the name Gangnam, a new proof of work testnet to which can have a bit more Genesis allocation, so we can have some faucets and stuff, and then deprecate Ropsten.
What for?
Well, to have a testnet where dApps can play.
I think this. Yeah, maybe this is an interesting time to bring up some discussions that have been floating around here and there. That we kind of agreed that Ropsten is kind of too big of a monster to continue, but an interesting question is whether we want to relaunch a proof of work testnet or whether we want to launch a proof of authority, because Efri and company has been working quite a lot on the Girly testnet, and that might also be a promising alternative. And of course, I do acknowledge that that would mean that we don't have a proof of work testnet, a public proof of work testnet, but we could always do, so to say, public proof of work testnet forks just to verify the proof of works and difficulties whenever we need to do a hard fork. So there's not really too much point to run a proof of work replacement for Ropsten, but it's just my opinion. So
Yeah,
probably
the only thing we would kind of lose is that we would lose, we would drop off Trinity, Aleph, all of those who haven't yet implemented Click, but I guess they can do that with relative ease.
Yeah, but this is a work in progress, so this can be done, and with all the money and developers out there, we can do this together if we want this. And I agree with Peter that going forward with proof of work is not feasible, and just this lonely GPU miner on Sturby just showed how unfeasible proof of work testnets are in the end, especially when you talk about having a testnet for applications, not for our core consensus needs.
I think Paul and Mikhail had a comment.
Yeah, I was trying to say that fresh test networks are not good in terms of testing difficulty bomb delays, because they have too low block numbers and difficulty bomb is not yet activated on those numbers. That was on Sturby. Yep.
Well, I would suggest you guys join this call because we can create ephemeral testnets as well that are purpose-built with relative ease that can be provisioned and controlled.
Yeah, so essentially that was my suggestion too, that whenever we want to do a hard fork, we can create a purpose-built testnet to specifically test the difficulty adjustment or something like that. But that's the only thing that we kind of need a proof of work testnet for. For everything else, a proof of authority is possibly a saner approach, at least from a dev developer perspective.
Yeah, well, you're probably going to want different consensus algorithms within different testnets for different reasons. But you would want them to be purpose-built, of course. But the issue is provisioning them and ensuring adequate activity within the network. But I think that's something that we can address, and that's what we'll discuss on this next call.
Yeah, but my point really is that if we want a purpose-built testnet to test difficulty adjustment, then we don't need any activity. I mean, empty blocks are perfectly fine. Whereas if you want to test any other modifications, then a proof of authority testnet is perfect for that, because that can actually test everything else.
Yeah, and we could probably add a configuration for difficulty bomb and for delays. I mean, to actually test them, to make them enabled.
Anyway, we definitely don't need to make a decision about this here, and it's more like just a suggestion that if we want to replace Ropsten, it might be a good idea to maybe replace it via a proof of authority testnet. But everyone, please think about it, and if somebody has a really good reason why that's a horrible idea, I think everyone can agree to consider it.
Yeah, I think that activity and behavior, like background traffic, is going to affect consensus and various metrics within the network.
Well, yeah, but that's the kind of the point of having a public testnet, because then you have everything, all the traffic, all whatnots.
So I suggest that we go to explore the option of purpose-built POW network with Zach, yes, and then we come back maybe on the next call and just see whether this is feasible to just have proof of work network for specific things, and then, as you said, Peter, and proof of authority for other things, for most of other things.
Yeah, so these purpose-built testnets can be ephemeral. So rather than being entirely public, they'll be permissioned, and then the activity and the behavior and all that can be provisioned and automated with the tools we've developed.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a good topic for the next meeting for sure. So, oh, I blanked. Oh, I had one other question about Goerli, Offrey. I think there was something where Ethereum Classic was going to be compatible with it. Would that make it bad to be a public Ethereum testnet if it also has Ethereum Classic on there, or is that compatibility not a problem?
No, it will not have classic compatibility.
Okay.
But we work on something similar for the classic community.
That's what it is. Okay, so it's actually not the same testnet. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on Constantinople we want to talk about? It sounds like we got a block number down, and that's great. Anything else? Okay. Next up, openness for meetings. I sent out a tweet, but I know not everyone's on Twitter. Basically, there were enough people who said over my dead body when it came to having any type of closed meetings that we're just going to have open meetings for now, because there wasn't as strong of a inclination to have the closed meetings, at least on here. I don't know about in-person meetings yet, just because the technical feasibility of having those as open as possible is different. But as far as these meetings go, and because we're not going to really have any more what were previously called Ethereum 1x or Ethereum mainnet improvement calls, we don't really have any more of those. The working groups are created now, that I think that just us doing the same thing we've been doing is going to be just fine. If anyone has a differing opinion, you can speak now, or you can speak to me privately if you don't want to speak now, since this is being streamed and everything.
No, I have really nothing to add, just a bit of confusion. I mean, there are working groups, and we will talk within working groups. Is that like frowned upon to talk with each other in a working group?
Oh, no, yeah, that should be private if you want it to be private. It can be as private or public as you want, because that's not a core dev meeting, and that's something that your people are coming up with on their own. So there was some confusion around that on Twitter, but I think it was just people not understanding how these meetings work. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Greg, what's up? Oh, Greg, you're muted.
There was useful discussion on how to make the judgment of, where do you open it up and how much, and it's a matter of judgment. What can you do? I just threw in chat that we worry about speaking freely in a public forum. We worry about the press and what they might say. And when I was organizing anti-war demonstrations, we had FBI infiltrators, we had CIA infiltrators, we had a press that would accuse us of violence after the police had finished beating us up. So, I just sort of shrug and go, this is important, but really, we don't have that much on the line. So it just isn't that hard.
Okay. Thanks for the comment on there, Greg. Cool that you were in anti-war demonstrations. So yeah, anyone else have comments?
Yeah, well, no, actually not. But there was a thing that I saw was not on the agenda, and I think maybe we should have it on the agenda. And that is ProgPoW update.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I didn't add that on there. Go right ahead.
Yeah, is Paul on the call? I don't know if you want.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So, yeah, update. Well, from last 2 weeks, there is one issue left that was reported, I think, at the beginning of this week. That has to be resolved. We know the solution is quite decided how to do it, but there are some small changes to the implementation required to mitigate some a small flaw in the algorithm, and so that's mostly the update, I think. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say unless you have some questions, or maybe I missed something that seems obvious to me, but it's not.
So a couple of weeks ago, there was implementations in CPP, in itash, in verifiers for Geth and parity, and they were all in sync. And then the spec changed a bit, and Geth and CPP updated. And now there are, and I think, as far as I know, parity have not yet implemented the latest changes. And now
yes, that's correct. Yes.
A couple of some more discussion about potentially changing this specification. So yeah, right now we have two clients kind of in sync, but we don't know if there might be change to the specification. If Parity implements the most recent changes, then we could launch a testnet fairly easily. But right now it's kind of difficult to do that.
Okay, sounds good.
I could also, I don't know, I could give an update also about an email that I sent out.
Oh, Paul, you're unmuted.
Because yeah, I might as well take it on the public channel. So we've had some bit of discussions with various people in crypto communities. One of them is David Vorick, the creator of SIA, and also one who's studied a lot of ASICs. And his take on the whole ProgPoW, and I'm quoting a bit, and I've gotten his approval to do so, but I might not, I might make some mistake. But my takeaway from what he says is that ProgPoW, if we were to replace Hashimoto Ethash with ProgPoW Ethash, that would probably, keep ASICs bias about a year and a half for any ASICs to gain any threshold. He does have a point that if we increase the resistance against ASICs, then that could itself be a centralization kind of something which increases centralizations, because only a really advanced ASIC manufacturer would be able to spend the resources and the research and build such an ASIC which could get efficiency gains. So his take is that although this would buy us maybe a year or two, another approach would be maybe to use switch an algorithm which is extremely ASIC friendly, and that is still an option that we would have. So one speculation that one might do is that we could adopt ProgPoW now, and if from a year from now we still don't have proof of stake, we might consider switching to something which is extremely ASIC friendly and which any ASIC manufacturer can produce, no matter if they're large or small, just to remove that kind of centralization. Regarding the actual prevalence of ASICs on the network today, it's really hard to find any numbers. I mean, there have been numbers reported from various sources, but none of them can be taken as fact, because there are no official records of the number of units sold or the number of units manufactured. So it's really hard. It's hard to take that into account, those kinds of numbers. Yeah, and some people think that the fact that we're implementing ProgPoW, that it's already decided, and that's definitely not the case. We're hoping just to do the implementations and get the options out there on the table, and then make a decision later on. All right, I think that's about it from me.
Can I say something? So I think I started to think about the ProgPoW a bit more about because of two reasons. First of all, is because we started to do this proposals for improvements of ETH 1.0, and obviously one of the elephant in the room was that, okay, so what are the other things that are slated for the Ethereum 1.0? And then obviously there's ProgPoW, which will take some amount of work, and then will definitely be taking some resources away from other things. And secondly, the Justin Drake's interview for the Epicenter Bitcoin, or whatever it's called, Epicenter right now. So when he's saying that the reason why Ethereum Foundation and the others want to develop the VDF ASIC is because they want to basically develop as best as they can do, so that another potential person, they cannot get any like a super advantage by creating something much better, because it's simply not possible to create something much better. So, and I'm really glad that Martin, you mentioned that as well, that there is a downside, so that potentially there is another side of the coin. So I want to be able, like, people to explore both of them and just don't be kind of centered on one thing. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the thorough explanation, Martin. And just to make it clear for those listening, like Martin said, ProgPoW has not been decided as something we are definitely putting in or doing. Same with any of the working groups we discussed today, besides the simulation one and probably the Ewasm one, just because those are non-controversial things that are more than likely going to go in. State rent and any kind of log-related working group that Peter's doing is not final yet, as far as a decision being made to pursue that as part of kind of the 1.0 roadmap per se.
I have a quick question, Hudson.
Yeah, sure.
Just tying together two threads, we spoke about launching a new testnet earlier and whether it should be proof of authority or proof of work. And Pavel and Martin just mentioned that they may be ready to spin up a proof of work testnet using ProgPoW soon. This may be way out there, but would it make any sense for that new testnet, that new app testnet, to be a ProgPoW proof of work testnet?
Actually, I don't think so, because you know, the switch from Hashimoto to ProgPoW is really just the envelope of the blocks, and it doesn't matter, as far as I can see, whether the blocks are full or if they're empty. So I would say not really.
Yeah, moreover, we want to actually have a testnet that has a switch from one algorithm to the other in the middle. So it's not pure ProgPoW. It will be like if hash first and then ProgPoW, or maybe even like switching back and forth many times on the way if client configurations would allow that. So
yeah,
I think it's a bad idea to mix like testnet for DApp testing with this one actually.
Then it might be an idea to have it first tested, which launches at block 5, scrap that, have another testnet which launches at the second epoch instead, and try different configurations like that with a series of testnets.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Great. All right, anything else on that? Okay. I have a quick announcement. Myself, Lane, Danny, Piper, and Offrey have been getting a group together, like an internal group that is bringing together people who are interested in coordination and project management related roles in the Ethereum ecosystem. Some of them are going to be coordinating hard forks with people like myself and Offrey. Some of them are going to be helping out maybe with EIPs, and some of them are going to be helping out with the core dev calls for weeks that I can't be there and Lane can't be there and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll be introducing those people over the next few months, mostly starting in January, which is maybe when the next core dev call will be anyway. But that you're going to start seeing more of that, and the main goal of that is to, number one, lighten the load for myself and Lane and Offrey and others who are a lot of the coordination around our specific teams and our specific initiatives like the core dev calls. And another one is to train up some of these people who are really interested in volunteering or eventually getting hired by teams. So teams that need a project manager can kind of be introduced to these people and maybe reach out to them if they want a job. So I think it's a good initiative, and I think it's hopefully going to be really successful, and we're going to work really hard to get them more integrated into these calls and do it in a way that supports the core developers and doesn't apply any more pressure. The other main goal is to kind of see what the needs are for these calls and for core dev coordination in general, and make it as easy as possible and as stress-free as possible. All right. The date for the next meeting. The holidays are coming up in a couple of weeks. It'll be the 21st, and stuff like Christmas is on the 25th. I don't think there's going to be anything but new releases for the fork number between now and then. So unless something radical happens, do we want to just skip that because people will be on vacation and stuff?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I might turn the question around and say, would anyone be opposed to January 4th being the next call? That's a month from now.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Okay, great. In that case, yeah, we'll just do January 4th. And yeah, everyone enjoy their break. Yeah, if there's anything else, have it in the core dev channel, have it on the working group chats and the magicians. And we're going to give back about half an hour today. So thanks, everybody. Have a great holidays.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.